All right. Let's do it. Where's my stylus? Here it is. Okay. Still hanging tough. All right, well. Okay, so we're going to start doing some occlusion shading today. It's another part of the process. So, occlusion shading. Let's see here if I... So the occlusion shading is what, like if that's unshaded, that is shaded. Shaded in a way that makes it seem as though if there was this sort of dark, or not dark, but diffused ambient light everywhere. Oh yeah, I forgot. I already treated it. Okay. Anyway, that's what that is. Yeah. Occlusion shading. There might even be some on this one. Here, let's fix what I just messed up. Yeah, okay. All right. Can't guarantee flawless victory, but we can try for consistent efforts. Okay, let's turn that off. Color flat master, we worked hard to get here. Let's table that for now. Here we go. And there is some design shading here, but that's not the same. Let's turn off the... Some of my layer names are not as... are not as educational for me after the fact. I need to get better about that. Okay. Turn that off. Okay. Now that all the occlusion shading is off, So we can add that now. Essentially what we do is we take the flat color layer, make it fully white so that it's infinitely bright. Name the layer, and I just go with O, so Moblin O, name of that layer. And into this we get to, and I haven't used this brush much on stream, I think this was the one. Definitely needing to get better about which tools are being used as well. I think that's a good one. You can see there's some texture and like artifacting that happens, but I kind of like that. In this world of artificial art, I think things that are human mistakes are probably better than stuff that looks too artificial. Bonk. Okay. Here, I'll put my coffee here. All right. I don't know if it's bugging anybody else, but it has been bugging me for a while, and I need to do something about it. Even though I've been sort of justifying it for a while because of the design of the original character, sort of having these, without taking the time to pull it up, the original design of the character didn't have substantial digits like the fingers. They were very sort of weak looking, but I sort of assumed that they were just, that was the design, but now I just feel like that was weak design, and all I really want to do is address the fact that like what's happening here is like each of these, compositionally, each of these digits is too similar to the one next to it. Something similar is happening here, but it's not as bad. But I want to at least see if I can get a sense of like overlap and perspective. And so I'm gonna mess with it a little bit because it's just been bugging me every time I look at this. So sorry for the backtrack, but that's how it's gonna go. Even if it just looks like this one pinky is overlapping the middle finger, I think that'll be enough. And then if this front finger looks like it's more deliberately overlapping the other, I think that'll help it. Okay. A lot of times in drawing an art, there will be a part that just is bugging you, or is drawing your eye to an area that you don't intend it to be drawn to. And that can be really frustrating because you might not know why that's happening. But the reason it's happening is because of the composition. What was happening there is the similarities in size had an effect of flattening out that space. Had an effect of flattening out that space in a way that was eye-catching. Probably because the rest of the drawing is so dynamic that it must have seemed that the wondering if anything else should change. That feels a little bit better. Yeah, even just that. If it looks like the eye is the eye is just automatically drawn to some things, especially if it's in contrast with other things that are happening. It doesn't help that this is one of the earliest drawings I did on this series, and I didn't draw it that well to begin with. Looking at, I mean, half this stuff I was like, I should really redraw that, but let's not make the perfect the enemy of the good, right? He's got an unusual grip here, but we can sort of, I just had this thought that I'd put an interesting bandage here on his finger, and then that sort of explains away why he might not be gripping so hard with his front finger. Bugging me less. Let's see if this helps much. Kind of think it does. Just tucking in this finger a little bit more. Okay, and now we can. Looks like all that we really need to erase is just this little bit from the other layers. Great, okay, cool. Okay, that helps a lot. And then down the road, you know, with lighting and other things, I can do things that really even knock it back even more. Okay, occlusion shading. It's essentially where is the light blocked. So I want to try and incorporate more of this. Brush into the series. So let me see what I can do. So I have to might make it a bit smaller. That feels good. Because this brush has a gradient effect to it, as well as all the other cool things. And this doesn't have to be a particularly difficult phase. Is the light blocked on top of the head? Not really. You know, maybe a little bit here where it's turning away, just a little bit though. Much more so under the ear, but not entirely. Light bounces around, it still gets in these little crevices. Light is much more blocked where objects are meeting each other and overlapping. Maybe not that much though. Light would really be blocked in these kinds of places, like the crevices. Places where objects are meeting and smushing together. What we will hopefully end up with is a something that almost resembles a statue. All these fun little wrinkles are opportunities to create some shadows. Maybe not go crazy. And certainly in the corners of the mouth, getting really dark. And we're not really thinking, of course, it's like we've all seen photos where the back of a person's mouth is very dark, but then there's a glint of highlight popping off of someone's tooth or a wet bit of the inside of their cheek or tongue, or even piece of spit. And that has to do with the materiality of the subject, and that's difficult stuff even for me. I'm not an expert on rendering and reflections and stuff like that. We'll sort of learn that together, I think. This will be a great opportunity, actually, for me to really practice down the road those things. But right now, we're treating this as a sort of discovery of making determinations where light is and isn't going. I mean, I'm certainly no expert on this stuff. Anybody who's like a real 3D artist would probably look at what I'm doing and being like, "You fool, you're doing it wrong." But I'm confident that given my process and abilities, that this will help and not hinder. And in the end, it's just a layer we can turn on and off. You know, right now it's set to normal, but if we I think that's useful information. So that later on, where we know where the light won't be, then therefore, right, we can work with a purely additive process of just adding light. And it should simplify the equation. Turn on all these things. And then we'll compress all the values. We'll have something that feels like a realistic, dimly lit scene that we can just add light to. We can light it. That's the goal. And it's fun. This part is fun because I'm not thinking about proportions. I'm not thinking about line weights. I'm not thinking about... I get to think about other stuff like, what do I want to have for lunch today? And I wonder when I'll get paid on my latest project and what I'll do with that money. Those are the real questions. This is that classic example of the occlusion shadow, where when you put your two fingers together and you see the line of darkness between them, like you separate them and there's no lines of darkness, but you put them together, you see the line of darkness. That's the occlusion shadow. That has a lot to do with why we intuitively understand lines as defining form. And it isn't something we have to overthink. Light can come from anywhere that we don't see. Shadows can come from places that we don't see. They do it in movies all the time. To an extent that would probably explode your brain. I'm lucky to live in LA and therefore have some experience like visiting and being on movie sets. Sometimes you just walk out the door and they're filming something on the street. I live in Studio City. They shoot a lot of commercials here, so you really can't help it. But even Onion, how are you doing? It's a lovely day so far. It's 6 a.m. Thanks for popping by. I'm just talking about shadows and lighting for movies. How if you are ever on a movie set, you'll see that what you'd think would be a really simple scene. There are, well, I'm not too far from the 101 freeway, which is not as bad as it used to be, actually, in terms of accidents and whatnot. But you know, it's been. I'm getting off on a tangent if I talk about this, but I'll quickly say that with LA being like forever being associated with car culture or whatever, the effect of car safety as a measurable thing that I'm amazed at. Like my Subaru, for instance, is fairly new and it's got all these safety features, and you know, I don't think I could hit a car if I tried, because it will it'll simply stop the car, you know, if I'm on a collision course. I've been in parking lots where I'm like, okay, it's gonna be close, but I'm gonna back up, and I'm gonna back up, and I'm gonna back up, and then the car just jolts to a halt. It won't progress any further because it senses it's about to collide with something. At least at the speed that I was going, wasn't having it. Just seized up and stopped, and wouldn't progress again until I just barely tapped on the accelerator, and then it let me sort of do my little. It was a safe maneuver, but the car wanted to make sure that I was paying attention, and yeah, I can't. Well, it. Certainly I can be hit by other cars, but the car mitigates all the things that would possibly cause me to have an accident with somebody else. That's me probably jinxing myself, but it's true that overall there are fewer accidents that I see on the road these days compared to when I was growing up. And the accidents that I see are much less, and they're cleared away a lot faster. And I'm pleased by that. It's real safety progress from the car companies. But no, I do see real movie sets from time to time just on my street. One time we were walking along and we saw Adam Scott and Amy Poehler doing a scene for Parks and Rec just down the street. Any Parks and Rec fans out there? Obviously that's whatever. That series is like 10, 15 years old by now. So, dating myself a bit, but that was a fun one, because we were fans of that series while it was on TV. So that was cool. Yeah, just filming an exterior location. But just for that scene where two people walking to their car at night. The lights, just the whole, that's what caught our eye. So we're like, wow, look at all those lights over there. Why would there be so many lights here? We go over, and yeah, it's lit up like you would like a sport event. And it's funny because it's like you can still tell it's nighttime, but I think I'm getting a little zealous with my shading. We don't, in fact, need these kind of... It's a little overly done. It's not quite right that those areas would be more shaded. They would catch plenty of light where they are. This little top of the thigh might be shaded more because of the shadow blocking from the body. But by the time it gets off here to the knee, that wouldn't affect as much. And it wouldn't really get to black. Let's see here. So that one, this might be true. Parks and Rec with Ron Swanson in it. Yes, that's the one. The grumpy guy. He's obviously one of my favorite characters. But if you have to ask that question, you're probably not a huge fan of the series. Between my wife and I, we've seen out in the wild of LA, I think pretty much the entire cast of The Office, not all together, but like in different, like I bumped into Steve, I didn't bump into him or anything like that, but I saw Steve Carell shopping at our local supermarket. I've seen the character that plays Kevin, like the big fat bald guy, at a Starbucks. It's generally like at a Starbucks, you'll see these people. Celebs, they're just like us. Okay, yeah. Yep, you can't escape the influence of these things. That is a fun show. And I mean, the rise of Chris Pratt, of course, has to do with him being major fan favorite on that series. Aubrey Plaza. I saw Chris Pratt outside of a sushi restaurant in downtown LA one time. And it's like, you know it's him because like this was at the height of his popularity, and I as opposed to now, he had just been cast in like the new Jurassic Park films. So the world was going nuts, and yeah, all the paparazzi were like taking pictures of him and stuff. He had like an entourage. It was like a staging kind of event, you know, kind of artificial. That's the sort of stuff that people who are like, LA is phony. It's like, it can be, especially outside of like the realities of things. like where I live in Studio City, things are more or less real. They're like the Hollywood and entertainment is an industry. It's like, it's equivalent to like blue collar type work, to be honest. If such a thing can exist. Certainly it's pretty ubiquitous to be a part of it. It's like all my friends and neighbors are sort of in the industry. And if not directly in, then tangentially in. Like, oh, I'm a CPA, you know, for Warner Brothers. There's a guy across the street, just across the big old house. He is like he was like a writer on, it's not Joss Whedon, but he was like a writer on like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and all sorts of stuff. And like still is a writer. Nice guy. All of these little tiny details on this character make for a very complex shading assignment. Squirrel Reaper. Welcome, welcome. Dropped frames. Why do I have those? Here, let me turn this off. There we go. It's always because Google is crunching my backups in the background. That's my theory. We're doing good so far. We're talking about shading, and what I'm doing right now is it has different kind of names, but like occlusion shading or ambient occlusion shading, just sort of determining where on a figure or subject that light is blocked. So light doesn't get into these tiny crevices in between his shoulder pad and his cheek, or in the dark recesses of his mouth or up his nostrils. Those areas, light can't bounce its way in there, so it has to be dark. And then in other places where it's blocked a little bit, we have to make it a little bit dark. If it's part of the object that is pointing straight up and receiving tons of light, light has lots of opportunities to get in there, then it's going to be pretty bright, like no shading at all. Yeah, it's a fun little mental exercise. It's also pretty mindless, so pleased about that. I can do it while I'm sleepy and just waking up, and it's not a big deal. It's also fun. It's like rendering. It seems more complex than it is. And the digital process means that I don't have, like, if I make a mistake, it's no big deal. I can be bold and make a bunch of mistakes and then just be like, well, I'll just go back to an earlier saved version. I didn't risk all that much. You know, you lose your time. That's it. So here, even though, like, this whole section obviously is out and it can receive a lot of light, it is going to get blocked a little bit where it's trending towards the head and the back of the body, because it's not going to get, it's going to get light that comes in like from this way. I can draw an arrow there. It'll get all that light, but the light that is coming from behind the figure, it won't get much of that at all. What we're not going to see are things like cast shadows. That's a little different. Cast shadows come from like direct lighting, like light that comes from a spotlight. Whereas right now we're detailing what happens with the light that comes from like an overcast, cloudy day. It's a softer quality. But because light is always reflecting, like unless you're in a void, you're always going to have some light reflecting off of things. What happens if we do, like, it's kind of cool, like if I turn the lights, so I have these lines on, if I turn them off, you're still seeing a strong sense of the sculpturing, right? It's like the work we did. That's today's assignment. Yeah. Turn on all of our layers. Set that to overlay. Sort of an interesting, starting to look a little bit more like, oh, that could be interesting. What am I looking at? Is it a drawing or a sculpture or a photograph? You know. Anyway, what are you all up to today? Wonderful Sunday. we're going to be going to... Well, that reminds me. I'll probably get his... I'll do this Moblin. I can't stream for long because I kind of got up late. Oh, we'll see. My wife will text me when she's up. Another day, another bunch of tomatoes. Onion says, I got home from a trip yesterday. Eating and sleeping, good. What is that emote? That's like the... Reminds me of the person that's like, yeah, I just got my food. Alright, today will be the day of eating. Actually is a good day to dig through my fridge a bit and cook up some of these leftover scraps that have been accumulating. It is, it's the feasting day. Scroll, do you live near the ocean or something? It feels like you have constant access to seafood. Where do you watch D&D? Is that a show? Like, I know you can play D&D, which I don't. Okay. So you're in the desert eating a bunch of seafood. I love it. I guess technically LA is a desert too. Okay. I've heard of stuff like that, yeah. Celebs and their D&D. I can hear my family being awake. So now that this Moblin is in a good place, I am going to call it a stream. And the foreseeable many streams will be applying this technique throughout everything. So you can see it's actually a long way to go. I think I was promising massive color victories in the near term, and now I see I have to back off that statement a little bit because there's definitely more hard work ahead. We have much to do, much yet to do, but that is always the case in life. All right, so cool. Those are probably interesting to watch. I used to watch my friends play D&D, but it wasn't to my taste. So there you go. All right, I am going to say thank you guys for popping in, and I appreciate it. And it'll just be more of this. So if you want to see me shade, pop in next time. And then, well, I swear, eventually we'll really start lighting these things and making them look real. All right, great. Guys, have a great day. Great Sunday. Love you. See you next time.